Hey guys, I would like to talk today a little bit about how to write like Quentin Tarantino. First and foremost, number one, you gotta know your characters. Each and every one of your characters has a backstory. Quentin will often write out that backstory in a screenplay, but then he just doesn't include it in the movie because of time limitations. But if you go to his screenplays, specifically like Kill Bill, there's an entire sequence where the bride goes out into like Texas, and if she doesn't find a rock marking her stash of passports and supplies and things, then she just assumes, okay, well, then it's not meant to be. I won't seek revenge. Well, that entire passage is in the screenplay, but it is not in the movie. Tarantino is not ever afraid to really dig into his characters. He knows their motivations, he knows them inside and out. And that backstory is really easy to overlook. So if you want to write like Quentin Tarantino, you gotta have a real grasp on your characters and their backstory. Number two, to write like Quentin Tarantino, he is very, very low tech. And by that I mean he is using good old fashioned, paper. And he writes in notebooks. Many, many, many notebooks. And he actually is very methodical about it. He said that he'll go to the store, to a stationery store, or an office supply store to get a specific notebook, and he'll be like, okay, this is the notebook I'm going to write Kill Bill with. Ironically, I don't have a notebook to put in there. Hold up. But he's like, this is the notebook I'm writing Kill Bill in. And I'm going to use these pens, and he'll buy some pens. And he just does it all by hand. He doesn't type it out. He doesn't use a computer. He keeps it very low tech. Number three, Quentin Tarantino is not an outliner. He is not an outliner in any way, shape, or form. He really goes into the story not knowing specifically how it's going to end. And I think that's really interesting because, like his latest movie, Hateful Eight, he said specifically, I did not know who, poisoned the coffee. That was the big hook in the movie, and that's a big, big part of it. I didn't know who did it. I wanted to find out as the viewer would find out. And that right there, I think, is really awesome, where a lot of us can overanalyze and go crazy, with all the many, many, many things out there on outlining. I will say this though, he does talk about it a little bit. He goes, often the ending is it's going to be pretty obvious once you really dive in. And I think that's very true too. He's like, with Kill Bill, you're going to have to kill Bill, right? So the ending, it kind of unfolds in Tarantino's words. It unfolds. A good story unfolds. And if you think about Pulp Fiction, how he did that in a non-linear fashion, it unfolded before your eyes, and he is a master craftsman of that. All right, number four, you got to have the humor. You got to have the dialogue. You got to have a rhythm to your words. And I think Tarantino has really been inspired by Richard Pryor, the comedian. A lot of his dialogue, too, he said that the movie Switchblade Sisters was a huge influence. Having his dialogue, having a firm grasp on dialogue, is a very key, foundational part of a Tarantino movie or a script. And that dialogue, it has a unique angle, it has a unique cadence to it. He said before that he wanted to write the poetry, the story kind of between the lines in a crime novel. And that makes sense. Think about Reservoir Dogs. It's a heist movie where you don't see the heist. So Tarantino, he has a very specific aesthetic, and he wants to, write in a certain way. So he has a very clear goal and vision for it. That's number four. And based on that dialogue is kind of driving his vision in a lot of ways. All right, number 5, you got to mention the nonlinear storytelling. And Tarantino is more of a novelist than a screenwriter. That's how he approaches his work. And he always finds it really interesting how everyone's like, "Ooh, nonlinear, nonlinear, ooh, nonlinear." Because when his first movies came out, when Pulp Fiction hit the scene and Reservoir Dogs and all that, he was one of the first, quote unquote, first popular directors and writers to do it. But novelists have been doing it for years. He pulls inspiration from novelists. Elmore Leonard is a huge influence. And I think that's a very big part of it. Crime novels, westerns, that's Elmore Leonard. There's a lot of Elmore Leonard, and I think you have to take into consideration that Tarantino has such a unique, you know, world in his head from all the many, many movies he has watched. And he's not afraid to go backwards and forwards and sideways and all that. Don't overthink it with nonlinear storytelling. He really broke it down as like 3 short stories in Pulp Fiction. 3 protagonists, each one tells their own unique story. 4 if you really want to include the very beginning and the very ending. But it's not as overly complicated as many, many people would like to make it out to be. All right, next one. I think this is number 5, maybe 6. I don't care. It's all good. Next thing about Tarantino is he is not afraid of the violence. You have to uncensor to write like Quentin Tarantino. He is not afraid of the violence. He is not afraid of making the audience uncomfortable. And he refers to it as kind of a puppet master, and he's pulling the strings. Make him laugh, make him laugh, make him laugh. Stop. Horror, shriek, what happened? Scared. Stop. Laugh, laugh. Why am I laughing? Stop. He does that very well, and playing with emotions, toying with emotions. So to write like Tarantino, you have to keep that in mind. That is the roller coaster ride. That is why people, pay to be entertained. And that's a very important part. Next one for Tarantino is you have to have an amazing, amazing quantity of items that you're consuming to kind of pull from them. I'll be honest, Tarantino steals like an artist. He is not afraid to, pick and choose and pick and choose. For example, Kill Bill, he has the bride in a suit that is almost identical to the suit that Bruce Lee wore. It's yellow. He's not afraid to pull, the intro to Inglourious Basterds mirrors a ton of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's not an exact ripoff, but it is extremely heavily inspired by. And I think that's where some people even criticize Tarantino, that he's just a ripoff artist. He doesn't rip off just one person, if you're going to ever call him that. He is taking from many, 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 many movies. And that is kind of his creative well that he's dipping into. A lot of them too are older movies or B movies or 70s exploitation movies. That's an important part of his writing approach. In addition, next one is that he really writes as an actor. He writes more from an actor perspective than a director perspective. And by that I mean specifically, again, it kind of goes to the backstory. It kind of goes to that emotion angle where a good actor is going to be emotional. They have to respond to each situation in their own way. And that is a very important part of his dynamic. He, combines all of these things together to have his own writing approach. And the cool thing is, you as a writer, as a story crafter, can take some of these things and make something that doesn't even look like remotely a Quentin Tarantino mix. And you can take a lot of these tools, a lot of these colors, and include it in your painting. So I would encourage you to write like Tarantino, have a lot of different sources of inspiration and to combine them together with your experiences, with your craft to create something new. Thanks for watching and for participating. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Jim Woods, and I am talking about story crafting. Thank you.